Taiwan and China reach a rare agreement, hoping to move on from an incident in February that left 2 Chinese sailors dead. President Lai warns of threats to Taiwan's international space as lawmakers from across the world meet in Taipei.
反对中国错误诠释联大第2758号决议与一中原则不当连结，企图用来限缩台湾的国际参与，并且建构中国武力犯台的法律依据。
Protesters clash with police in the streets of Venezuela as the opposition disputes the president's re-election victory. Plus, women in Indonesia fight back against domestic violence through martial arts training. Hello and welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Leslie Liao. The bodies of 2 Chinese citizens killed when their boat collided with Taiwan's Coast Guard are on their way back to China. The incident has further raised tensions in the Taiwan Strait and seen China increase patrols around the Taiwanese islands of Jinmen. Louise Watt reports from Jinmen.
A Taoist ceremony for 2 dead Chinese sailors in a Taiwanese port before their bodies and their boat are returned to China. It marks a rare moment of agreement between China and Taiwan. Chinese officials travelled here to Taiwan's outlying Jinmen Islands to negotiate the repatriation of the remains of their nationals, killed in a chase with Taiwan's Coast Guard. Neither side gave details of their agreement, but reports suggest Taiwan paid thousands of US dollars in compensation to the families, but without accepting blame for the incident.
公示的内容就是你们今天看到我们所做的一切嘛，就是遗体归还，然后船也归还，然后这个把事情圆满落幕这样子。
And from the Chinese official who travelled from a city across the water to Taiwanese land.
双方善后协商，终于达成共识。希望台湾有关方面积极落实纪要条款。
It's a step back from where they were some 5 months ago, when Taiwan's Coast Guard said the sailors' unregistered speedboat was in restricted waters, and that the Chinese fled from them and drowned. China called the incident malicious. Since the incident, there's been an influx of Chinese vessels, including Coast Guard vessels, in the waters around Jinmen. China, which can be seen just across the water from here, says it's simply protecting its sailors. But Taiwanese officials see it as part of a Chinese pressure campaign to get them to accept Chinese claims of sovereignty over Taiwan. The return of the bodies, while calming tensions for now, is not likely to change the continuing patrols by China in these waters, which China has sought to normalise. While this argument over the Chinese nationals and their boat has been resolved, Taiwan is left grappling with more Chinese vessels around their islands, a sign of their own restricted space and the pressure China can bring to bear. Alex Chen, Scott Huang and Louise Watt for TaiwanPlus.
Lawmakers from around the world are meeting in Taipei for the Inter-Parliamentary Alliance on China's annual summit. IPAC is a group of leaders from dozens of countries concerned about challenges posed by Beijing. Chris Gorin was at the conference and brings us this report.
The Summit for the Inter-Parliamentary Alliance on China, or IPAC, is having its 4th annual conference here in Taipei. It's a group of lawmakers from around the world who say they're focused on confronting China's rise. 48 parliamentarians from 24 countries are joining, which the group says makes it the largest parliamentary delegation ever to visit Taiwan in an institutional capacity. Taiwan's top leaders are participating in the summit, including President Lai and Vice President Kim. The group recently made headlines after it was revealed that lawmakers from at least 6 countries had been contacted by Chinese diplomatic staff about their trip to Taipei.
They contacted president of my political party. They asked him to stop me to travel to Taiwan, and he sent a message to them that he cannot stop me. I'm free member of parliament to make decisions.
If they think that they can tell foreign legislators where they can and cannot go, they have another thing coming. These are democratically, legitimately elected legislators in different countries, and they're going to go exactly where they are entitled to go. And that's why they're coming to Taiwan, and they are not going to be told by China that they can't come here.
This isn't the first time the group has dealt with Chinese pressure. The U.S. Justice Department announced earlier this year that hundreds of accounts tied to the group, including every member of IPAC in the European Union, were targeted by a Chinese state-sponsored hacking operation. Now, one of the major agenda items of this meeting is UN Resolution 2758, which gave the PRC China's seat at the United Nations, and which China has used to bolster its claim of sovereignty over Taiwan. Taiwan President Lai addressed this issue in a speech during the summit, which he connected to a wider global threat.
反对中国错误诠释联大第2758号决议与一中原则不当连结，企图用来限缩台湾的国际参与，并且建构中国武力犯台的法律依据。我要强调，中国对任何一个国家的威胁，就是对世界的威胁。
IPAC members say they want this summit to produce a plan to fight back against China's claims on this resolution. After Lai's speech, the IPAC members presented Lai with a map of Taiwan and the Taiwan Strait. All their signatures were on Taiwan's side of the map, a symbolic gesture of their solidarity with the country. These lawmakers now return to their home countries. Well, they will have to see if this global turnout marks a turning point on confronting China and whether they can turn their words into actions. Patrick Chun and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
Washington is shoring up its ties in the Indo-Pacific with $500 million in proposed military funding for the Philippines. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin met with Philippines President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. in Manila on Tuesday. The proposed pact aims to boost the Philippines' defenses amid China's increased military presence in the region. Marcos says close ties between Manila and Washington are needed for an agile response to tensions in the South China Sea. Venezuelan security forces have fired tear gas and rubber bullets at protesters demonstrating against Sunday's disputed presidential election. The election authority has formally declared Nicolas Maduro the winner, but the opposition says it won and is gathering evidence to prove it. Rosie Gweninger has more.
Violence breaks out in the Venezuelan capital, Caracas, as thousands take to the streets to protest the result of the country's presidential election. This after the government-controlled electoral authority declared sitting President Nicolas Maduro the winner for another 6-year term, with 51% of the votes. To a cheering crowd, Maduro, who's been president since 2013, claimed victory.
Y puedo decir ante el pueblo de Venezuela y ante el mundo, soy Nicolás Maduro Moro, presidente reelecto de la República Bolivariana de Venezuela, y voy a defender nuestra democracia, nuestra ley y a nuestro pueblo.
But it's the country's democracy that is in question, with the vote facing accusations of fraud. World leaders and election observers are calling for a full breakdown of election result tallies from each of the country's 30,000 polling stations. While the opposition says the election result was marred by fraud, they also declared victory, saying their presidential candidate Edmundo Gonzalez gained 70% of the vote.
Lo que ocurrió en la jornada electoral de hoy. Aquí se han violado todas las normas al punto de que aún no han sido entregadas la mayoría de las actas. Nuestra lucha continúa y no descansaremos hasta que la voluntad del pueblo de Venezuela sea respetada.
Gonzalez is planning to challenge the vote tally, saying he has proof he won. Independent polls predicted a landslide loss for the authoritarian Maduro, amid discontent among voters. Under his leadership, the country was plunged into an economic crisis. that pushed 7.7 million people, or a quarter of the population, to flee the country in search of a better life. Voters who expected a different outcome are outraged and questioning the legitimacy of the vote.
Voy a luchar por la democracia en mi país. Nos robaron. Porque ese es un genocida. Tenemos que luchar por la democracia en este país. Nosotros tenemos que seguir luchando por nuestros muchachos, por la juventud, por mis nietos y por mis hijos que tengo en este país.
Riot police have fired tear gas and rubber bullets at protesters, but it's failed to subdue the demonstrations, which are growing by the hour, and has Venezuelans overseas joining in the call for transparency. More unrest is expected over the disputed election results, as these protesters demand their vote be respected. Dolphine Chen and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
Tropical storm Kami continues to bring heavy rain and flooding to China. The storm hit Taiwan last week before moving towards China. A landslide in Hunan province has killed 15 people. Hundreds of thousands of people have been displaced in Fujian province. China's leaders have promised nearly $70 million for recovery efforts. South Korean lawmakers say Russia may have helped North Korea with an attempted satellite launch earlier this year. The lawmakers cited the South's spy agency, stating that the rocket used a liquid oxygen and petroleum engine, which the North does not have the technology to build. It exploded minutes after liftoff. The spy agency says a successful launch late last year probably also had Russian assistance. When Kim Jong-un visited Russia last year, Russian President Vladimir Putin promised to help him build satellites. Japan has returned the crew of a Taiwanese fishing boat caught trespassing in its waters. But questions remain over what exactly happened. John Van Trieste has more.
After nearly 2 days, Japan has released the crew of this Taiwanese fishing boat. From the Japanese perspective, this is an open and shut case of illegal fishing. The ship was caught in Japan's waters, and its owner has been told to pay a guarantee of nearly $10,000 to secure its 8 crew members' release.
据我国驻日本人员查报，该船因为进入日本与那国岛12里领海内违规作业，遭日本海保厅公务船发现并取缔。
But the Fishers Association at the boat's home port in Taiwan tells the story somewhat differently, although it says it doesn't have the full picture yet.
来求救，就是说日本这跟他碰撞，甚至登船要检查啊。当时的情形应该是船长比较清楚啊。在日本的方面是说我们业界来去捕捞渔获的问题。
Taiwanese fishers say there's nothing to worry about as long as they follow international rules.
照规矩，咱的海里来安尼就好嘿。
咱若要超过热冷个，干来会惊。你是超过热冷个，唔知会甲你扣。
But this is already the second Taiwanese vessel Japan's Coast Guard has intercepted this month. And Japan isn't the only nation to have accused Taiwanese fishers of breaching their sovereignty in recent years. A bigger question looms as to what extent Taiwan's fishing fleet respects its neighbors. Eason Pan and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up after the break, building bridges or burning them, how India's most recent infrastructure project could inflame tensions with neighbor China. Stay tuned.
This month's top hits on TaiwanPlus.
Let's go. Let's go to Chinese Taipei. Where is it?
Why is Taiwan called Chinese Taipei in international sports? Dive into the complex origins with athletes and experts.
People feel like we are Taiwanese.
It's the music that tells you to be yourself.
Taiwan's indie music scene is calling to you. Time to take Taiwan's musicians to the world.
Delicious plant-based dining in Taiwan.
An elevating vegetarian experience. Join Aggie Xie on Veggie Island to savor Taiwan's diverse dishes.
Hi, I'm Kevin. Welcome to Whirlwind Trip.
Hop on Whirlwind Trip to discover all the fun Taiwan has to offer around the clock.
An exhilarating journey full of culture, discovery, and unforgettable moments.
Vibrant and original programs, exclusively on TaiwanPlus.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. A planned liquefied natural gas terminal has been shelved as it awaits an environmental impact assessment. The development has renewed debates between environmentalists and the government. Tiffany Wong reports.
Plans for Taiwan's fourth liquefied natural gas terminal are stalling as they once again face an environmental impact assessment. The assessment comes after years of back and forth between the city and Taipower, the state-run company behind the plant. The mayor of Geelong, the northern port city where the LNG terminal is planned, had revoked earlier development plans in 2023, citing concerns about the impact on residents and the environment.
欢迎经济部长郭志辉，还有我们的环境部长彭启明。如果关心世界的议题，也欢迎来访。重要的是，我们一直都是坚守我们的立场，为基隆民众来维护权益。
Plans for the terminal had already been updated to address residents and environmentalist concerns after the previous mayor approved the plan. The development area shrank and was moved to a different location along the coast. But this new plan did not undergo an impact assessment. The Agriculture Ministry says the plan for the LNG terminal had already been thoroughly reviewed and overturned the city's government's decision to scrap the project.
农业部书院会都是依照我们的行政院及各级行政机关书院审议委员会组织规程，其中法律专家跟学者都超过1/2，做成相关的一个决议。
Now the terminal is up for environmental impact assessment again.
我们后面会依照目前的机制去询问委员的一个意见，去进行后续环境影响评估案件的一个审查。
Taipower is now protesting the city's move to block the plant and is seeking the Agriculture Ministry's assistance.
台电当然是认为该怎么样依照法令规定走就怎么走啊。
But environmental groups are concerned that pressure to advance Taiwan's energy supply could cause the review committee to overlook the environmental costs and move ahead with Taipower's plan, risking permanent damage to the marine ecosystem.
非常担心环境部在经济部的压力之下。 然后当了经济部的小弟，一路帮台电过关斩将，让这个案子强行通过。这件事情是我们非常不乐见的。
The Environmental Assessment Committee will meet in mid-August to discuss the plant, and environmentalists will be keeping a close eye on the proceedings, as Taiwan once again works to balance its energy needs with protecting the environment. Eason Chen and Tiffany Wong for TaiwanPlus.
U.S. President Joe Biden is proposing sweeping changes to rein in the country's highest court.
My fellow Americans, based on all my experience, I'm certain we need these reforms. We need these reforms to restore trust in the courts, preserve the system of checks and balances that are vital to our democracy. They're also common sense reforms that a vast majority of the American people support, as well as leading constitutional law scholars, progressives and conservatives.
Biden says the conservative-led Supreme Court is being weaponized to undermine civil rights. He's calling on Congress to help him enact reforms like term limits and a code of conduct. But Republicans, who have a majority in the House of Representatives, have already said they oppose these moves. Chinese President Xi Jinping is urging closer ties with Italy.
中伊两国应秉持源远流长的丝路精神，从历史维度、战略高度和长远角度看待和发展双边关系，推动国际社会求同化异，扩大共识。
Xi met with Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni in Beijing, where they signed a deal to strengthen economic cooperation between the two countries. She described China as significant in managing global tensions. China and India are racing to build strategic infrastructure along their shared border. India has recently completed the new Chenab rail bridge, which is likely to fuel tensions between New Delhi and Beijing. Harel Hughes has more.
Perched in the Himalayas is now the world's highest railway bridge. Built by India in the contentious Kashmir Valley, this bridge spans over 1,300 meters, with its arch at an altitude of 359 meters above the Chenab River, taller than the Eiffel Tower. It's taken years to complete, but this Chenab railway bridge is vital to India establishing its presence in this region, along its disputed border with China.
Once railway is completed and its connection to Kashmir is completed, it will definitely facilitate movement of people, movement of goods, movement of army personnel, because as I said previously also, Kashmir is a border state.
Over the years, China has rapidly built infrastructure on its side of the loosely defined line of actual control, its de facto border with India, where once there were only checkpoints, there are now outposts, military installations, and highways, one of which runs through Aksai Chin, a region claimed by India but controlled by China. Though largely uninhabitable, both countries have stationed troops in the high-altitude desert to strengthen their territorial claims. And in 2020, a clash between them left at least 4 Chinese soldiers and 20 Indian service members killed. They've been locked in a military standoff since.
The frictions and tensions that arise from China's deployment since April 2020 cannot be reconciled with a normal relationship between two neighbors.
Relations between the two nuclear powers have not been this low since the 1962 border war, when China defeated India and first gained control of the Aksai Chin region. Both countries say they want a de-escalation of tensions, but each maintains the other is to blame for the current situation.
印度在中印边境地区加强军力部署，不利于中印为缓和边境局势所做的努力，也不利于维护中印边境地区的和平与安宁。
With this bridge, built at a cost of $3.9 billion, India hopes to counter China's growing presence at its border. And though both sides say they have yet to exhaust diplomacy to settle their differences, increasing developments like this one, and in around disputed areas, are being seen not just as means to further territorial claims, but as a sign of the breakdown in mounting mistrust between the neighbors. Devin Tsai, Adil Brar, and Harel Hughes for TaiwanPlus.
Ongoing violence against women and girls has increased demand for female martial arts classes in Indonesia. Bryn Thomas takes a look at how women from the Muslim-majority country are getting fit, blowing off steam, and learning to fight back.
After years of being repeatedly attacked and physically abused by her husband, Rani Marant is learning Muay Thai, a style of kickboxing to defend herself.
Ya, boxing, karena saya pernah ada di physical abuse yang saya tidak bisa melawan. Nah, sekarang akhirnya saya punya pelampiasan itu dan saya punya skillnya.
Rani is one of a growing number of women in Indonesia learning mixed martial arts and Muay Thai. The rising popularity of combat sports among women in the Muslim-majority country has seen an explosion in demand for female instructors.
Lagi banyak banget orang yang nyari guru Muay Thai, guru private Muay Thai, karena kan ada yang orang enggan sama coach laki-laki kan ya, jadi dia lebih leluasa kalau sama coach perempuan.
While most Indonesian women in combat sports are there to get some exercise and blow off some steam, others are there to learn to defend themselves. 1 in 4 women in Indonesia will experience sexual or physical abuse in their lifetime, with cases including attempted and marital rape, forced abortion, and incest. The country's Commission on Violence Against Women reported around 290,000 cases of gender violence in 2023, a 12% decrease from 2022. That small drop in the rate of violence corresponds with the country's passing of a sexual abuse law in 2022, a law that defines sexual abuse inside and outside of marriage, officially recognizing spousal rape. But the Commission warns that underreporting means the actual number of cases of sexual violence is far higher.
Untuk kasus kekerasan seksual, masih banyak masyarakat kita yang menganggap itu sebagai sesuatu yang aib, memalukan untuk yang perempuannya. Karena itu juga banyak keluarga yang kemudian memutuskan sudah, kalau bisa kita handle, nggak perlu kita kasih tahu seluruh dunia anak kita pernah mengalami kekerasan seksual.
Researchers say female students between 18 and 24 years old are the most likely to experience sexual violence, and the perpetrators are most likely to be their former or current male partners. Muay Thai coaches hope to empower women by giving them the skills they need to fight back and the courage they need to speak up.
dari belajarnya sendiri aja sebenarnya mentalnya itu terbentuk. Jadi yang tadinya orangnya yang pemalu, pendiam, jadi dia udah bisa untuk buka suara juga loh gitu lah. Jadi gimana ya, yang mentalnya yang tadinya ciut, terus kalau ada apa-apa dia bisa memberanikan diri loh untuk membela dirinya sendiri.
As government efforts to curb gender violence and protect women make gradual progress in Indonesia, women here are taking matters into their own hands and learning to protect themselves. Howard Chang and Bryn Thomas for TaiwanPlus.
And now for a look at Taiwan's performance at the Paris Olympics, where boxer Wu Shiyi has advanced to the quarterfinals in the 60-kilogram category. It comes after her opponent, Nigeria's Cynthia Ogunsemlore, failed a drug test and was disqualified from competing. Swimmer Eddie Wang advances to the semifinals after placing third in his group in the 200-meter butterfly heats. In table tennis, Zheng Yijing and Gao Chengrui have advanced in the singles competitions after defeating their Romanian counterparts. Fencer Chen Yitong lost to French rival Enzo Lefort, finishing 27th overall, while the men's archery team fell to China in the quarterfinals, losing 1-5 and finishing 7th overall. Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, let's take a look at Cyprus hosting a plastic-free beach event. I'm Liao. Take care and see you next time.